Okay, so this evening we are going to spend time answering the question, who are the 24 elders? Now we read from the Desire of Ages that they are a special group of angels that represent the unfallen worlds, but we're going to go into an in-depth study, right? But first of all, we need to understand that the traditional view of the 24 elders is that this group, they are those who resurrected with Jesus and went to heaven with him when he ascended after his earthly work. That is the traditional view, and that is what you will find in most Seventh-day Adventist books on Revelation and even in the Seventh-day Adventist Bible commentary. Okay? So we need to understand and find out if this idea is correct, whether the 24 elders are actually those who resurrected with Christ and Jesus took to heaven, whom Jesus took to heaven 40 days after his resurrection, or whether they are a different group of beings, right? Now, to understand this, we need to go to the Bible, right? We're going to understand it from the Bible, and then we will ratify it, as it were, from Spirit of Prophecy. So let's go to Job 38, chapter 38, and read verses 4 through 7 as we begin this study. Just a background here, God is going to ask Job a series of questions. Now, for Madhavi, who's just come in, Job was a patriarch that lived on earth. Actually, the book of Job is the first book that was written. So Job didn't have any written scripture. But Job goes through a series of terrible calamity that is brought on by Satan, we see in scripture. And so from the time Job went through this, when he lost his children, he lost everything he had, and then he had these boils on his body from head to foot, and he keeps talking, he keeps asking the Lord. Job doesn't understand, but Job still is faithful to God, right? So Job is talking from chapter 2 or whatever till chapter 38. Job is talking. Then God talks. So up to chapter 38, God was silent. So God is going to ask Job a series of questions. And the questions are relating to creation, as we will see. So let's see what God asks Job after Job pauses in his discourse with God when he keeps asking God what has happened, why this is happening. Let's see what God asks Job. Job 38, 4 to 7.
Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy.
Okay, so God is asking Job, where were you when I created? Where were you when I put this earth in place, right? So, and then we are told, and God says, when the morning stars sang together and the sons of God shouted for joy. Now, what are the conclusions that we can reach from this, where God says, where were you when the morning stars sang together and the sons of God shouted for joy? He's asking Job that was at creation. This is pertaining to creation, right? So what are the conclusions that we can come to? One is Job 38, 1 to 7 is describing events that transpired during the creation week, right? That becomes quite clear to us. Then the morning stars and sons of God were present as witnesses of creation. It's very clear in these verses, right? Because these verses indicate that the morning stars and the sons of God were there when God created this world. So there are two possibilities, and that is that the sons of God and the morning stars represent the same group of people, right? It's in other words, the expression morning stars and son of gods is simply a synonym or parallelism, right? there's also the possibility that the stars are angels and the sons of God are angels that represent the other worlds, the worlds, right? Now, after studying this, I believe that the morning stars and the sons of God is a parallelism. It refers to the same group, right? Now, clearly, the sons of God and the morning stars already existed when God created this world, right? When God created this world. So, is that point clear? The morning stars were there right at the beginning, at the dawn of the creation of this world, right? And that is before any human being existed. They existed at creation. Is that clear? The morning stars and the sons of God existed before any human beings were created, before Adam was created. Now, the question is, who are the morning stars and the sons of God, right? Who? The Bible, as we have seen, as we know, explains itself, right? And we know clearly who stars are, right? Revelation 12, 3 and 9 identify the stars as angels. We find clearly who the stars are, and we read, and we have read this verses many times before, but let's read it again this evening. Revelation 12, verses 3 and then verse 9.
And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. So the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Okay, so this is Satan. His tail by the veil refers to the lies that he told, right? We won't get into that right now, but as we study Revelation, we will realize that his tail drew a third of the stars, means it drew by his deceptions, right? He influenced the stars. And then it tells us that the stars are his angels. So stars are angels, right? And he was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast with him. So in the very context, it explains that the stars of heaven represent angels. Now, Mrs. White confirms this, that the sons of God that are mentioned in the book of Job were angels, right? Notice this statement from Great Controversy, page 519. She is reminiscing on the story of Job. Let's read it and see.
The scriptures declare that upon one occasion, when the angels of God came to present themselves before the Lord, Satan came also among them, not to bow before the eternal King, but to further his own malicious designs against the righteous. With the same object, he is in attendance when men assemble for the worship of God. Great Controversy, page 519.
So she clearly says, right, the sons of God are angels, right? The angels of God came, right? So that's clear to us. The Bible tells us that it is angels and the stars are angels, and then Mrs. White clarifies. So it's clear that the sons of God in the book of Job are angels. Revelation chapter 12 confirms it. And Mrs. White also confirms it when she says that the angels of God came, right? And the book of Job says sons of God came. So the sons of God are angels, right? If you use logic, the sons of God are angels, right? Now, let's do a little parenthesis or digression here. You know, some people say,
Nena, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah.
Rukma wants the link, Nena.
Auntie, it's put on the study.
No, I think she needs the
link. She's asking for the link.
Esther, you need to save that and keep. Tell Rukma that I sent it to her one, right? Okay. So now, like I said, let's digress a little bit. You know, if I think many of us have heard this, some people say that, well, if the sons of God in the book of Job are angels, then the sons of God in Genesis 6 have to be angels. Why is this a controversy? Because Genesis 6 tells us that the sons of God and the daughters of men married and had giants, right? So Genesis chapter 6, that they had sexual relationships with the daughters of men, must also be angels. So people confuse this, right? They say the sons of God are angels, and that's why you got this these giants. Now you find that a good number of commentators, Protestant commentators today also, believe that in Genesis chapter 6, the angels actually saw beautiful women. They came down and had, sex with them, and they produced giants that are mentioned in Genesis chapter 6. Now, the problem with that view is that we always have to look at this in terms within their context, right? Now, if you look at Genesis chapter 6, if you look at what comes before the expression sons of God in Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, we must understand that the expression sons of God within that specific context in which it appears is talking not about angels, it's talking about the lineages, right? Now let me take you through these points that I put up there. In scripture, terms do not always mean the same things. Symbols don't always mean the same thing, right? Now, the lion in the Bible can represent things in different contexts. For example, it can represent Christ as the lion of the tribe of Judah. A lion can represent the devil, right? He goes about as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour, we are told, right, in the New Testament. Then the lion represents Babylon in Daniel chapter 7. And the lion can also represent Judah, the son of Jacob. So just because you find lion, it doesn't mean that lion is the same thing in every context it appears in, right? Also, another one is leaven. Leaven, we say, represents sin. But in the parable of the leaven represents the Holy Spirit. And when the Holy Spirit is present in the church grows. So leaven can represent the Holy Spirit and as well as represent sin, depending on the context. Okay? Then in the Bible, the word sword, the term sword represents the Bible, right? Ephesians tells us it's the Bible. But the sword in Romans 13 can also represent the power of the state to execute those who violate civil laws, right? So we have to take into account the context. In what context is Genesis 6 written? What is the context, right? Now, immediately preceding Genesis 6, the context preceding Genesis 6, we have two genealogies. It's in Genesis chapter 4. You have the genealogy of Cain, right? Genealogy is the family line. There are three wicked women mentioned in the genealogy of Cain. These could be the daughters of men then that you have in Genesis 5, because three women are mentioned in the genealogy of Cain, right? And then you get in Genesis 5, you get you get Seth and Seth's descendants, right? That is the descendants of the righteous. And immediately after that, you get Genesis 6, 1 to 5. And then you have the sons of God and the daughters of men. So in this context, it's not referring to angels. It's referring to the daughters of men marrying the sons of God, who were the righteous, who came from the line of Seth. Cain's daughters are the daughters of men. And Seth's descendants were the righteous descendants through whom the seed, the Messiah, was to come. Now, incidentally, Luke 3:38 states that Adam was the son of God. Now, Luke is also giving a genealogy of Jesus. And at the end, Luke ends by calling Adam the son of God. Now, Adam certainly was not an angel, right? He was a human being. So human beings can be called sons of God as well. Now, you notice in Romans 8, 14 to 15, Paul says, for as many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. So the converted are also referred to as the sons of God. Now, how many of us present here today, this evening, consider ourselves sons and daughters of God? You don't have to look like angels, right? I don't think you look like angels still, right? You're very human to me. You look very human to me. But Paul talks about the converted brethren. Usually brethren in the Bible represents those who are following God, right? The converted. So the converted brethren are called sons of God, right? So in other words, don't conflate or merge Genesis 6 with the book of Job. They are different contexts, and the expressions of son of God can mean different things in different contexts. Is that clear? Because many times in Bible discussions, these come because people think sons of God may represent angels. So is that clear for you all? Do you all understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next Sabbath school lesson, if someone says it, you know what to say, right? Okay, now this is in Job chapter 1, verses 6 to 7. We are going to see a heavenly council, a meeting that God has called. Maybe it's an executive committee or God has a meeting in heaven, right? And this is the first meeting mentioned in Job chapter 1. So let's read it and see.
Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it."
Okay. Now, if you notice, I have highlighted certain words here because some very interesting details emerge from this text. Now, if you read it, the sons of God don't always dwell in the presence of God, because it says the sons of God came to present themselves. So they would have obviously not been there before, right? Because they came to present themselves before God. And we are told they came on a certain day, right? Which means that they're not there all the time, right? Now, by the way, this contrasts with Job 1:7, where it says that Job, if you read the chapter of Job, the book of Job, Job offers sacrifices always for his children and for himself in case he has, they have sinned, right? So always, so there's a contrast in words. The sons of God come on certain days, on certain occasions, whereas Job offers sacrifices always. So in the book of Job, you see this comes on certain days, always, right? So you get this very clear distinction that the sons of God did not don't live in the presence of God always, right? Now, another important point is that Satan did not come with the sons of God. He considered himself one of the members of the sons of God. It says he came among them. He joined them, right? So he's claiming a right to belong to this select group, the sons of God. He didn't come with them. He comes among them. So he claims to have a right to be there when they are there. Okay, is that clear? Now, and then the record also tells us that Satan came from planet Earth. From where did he come? He came from planet Earth, right? So if Satan came to this heavenly meeting representing planet Earth, who must the others representatives be that came to the heavenly meeting, right? It is not too much of a stretch to believe that the other sons of God also came from other planets, right? Are you following me? Is that clear? Because they came to present themselves among the sons of God in this heavenly council. So they came to represent each person's individual planet, because Satan goes to represent us, the cheek. Anyway, now there is a second meeting, right? This confirms this perspective. Let's read Job chapter 2, verses 1 and 2.
Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came along among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it."
Okay, so now it's the same. They came, so they were not there. They came to present themselves. Satan comes among them, so Satan thinks he claims to be among this select group. But the difference here is, again, there was a day. So that means, in other words, this is a second meeting. Okay, so they have regular meetings. So must the sons of God have left the presence of God after the first meeting? Of course, because they're coming again, right? Because it says they came again, which means that after the first meeting, they left. They went somewhere. They went to the planets that they represent in other words. And they came back when they were summoned on this other day. Right, now that is clear. Now there is another story in the Old Testament that illustrates the fact that God has a heavenly council. In other words, God has a kind of representation from all over the universe that gather together to deliberate about the running of the universe. You say, well, God could do that all by himself. Well, yes, but God is a delegator. In other words, God runs a government where it is representative, right? He has different functions for different angels and beings in the universe. God is not arbitrary. That tells us that God is a fair God. He gives each one a representation. Now notice this example from the period of Ahab and the king Jehoshaphat. Now Ahab was the king of the northern kingdom, right? We know that, the 10 tribes of Israel. Whereas Jehoshaphat was the king of the 2 tribes of the southern kingdom. On one day, Ahab says to Jehoshaphat, "I think we ought to join forces and go and fight against the Syrian, our enemy, common enemy he has." So Jehoshaphat says that it might be a good idea, but shouldn't we get prophetic approval? Right now, I'm telling the story as it is. Should we get a prophet to tell us whether it's a wise thing to do or not? "Don't you have any prophets around?" he asks Ahab. And Ahab says, "Prophets galore. I've got lots of prophets. I got 400 of them." Remember, Jezebel had 400 of false prophets. So he calls the 400 prophets and he says, "Jehoshaphat and I want to go and fight against the Syrians. Is that a good idea or not?" And of course, the false prophet said, "If you go to battle, you're going to gain a single victory. You're going to win." But Jehoshaphat wasn't convinced. So he looked at Ahab and he says, "Isn't there a prophet of God around?" And Ahab says, "Yeah, there is a prophet of the Lord, but he's in a dungeon." Ahab had thrown him into a dungeon, right? And his name is Micaiah, because every time I ask him to prophesy, he prophesies evil. Naturally, Ahab was one of the wicked kings we had, Israel had, right? Now, Micaiah was brought because Jehoshaphat requested it. So he is brought from the dungeon. And now Micaiah is going to say something very interesting about what is happening in heaven. Let's read 2 Chronicles 18, verses 18 to 22.
Then Micaiah said, Therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing on his right hand and his left. And the Lord said, Who will persuade Ahab, king of Israel, to go up, that he may fall at Ramoth Gilead? So one spoke in this manner, and another spoke in that manner. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. The Lord said to him, In what way? So he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And the Lord said, You shall persuade him and also prevail. Go out and do so. Therefore, look, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of these prophets of yours, and the Lord has declared disaster against you.
Now remember very carefully that what God permits is attributed to him in the Bible, right? So not that God doesn't lie. He doesn't put lying. He permitted that lying spirit, right? So in other words, who convinced Ahab to go to battle so that he gets killed? Evidently no one wanted to do it. Was that a faithful angel who said, I'll go and put a lying spirit into the mouth of the false prophets, right? Was that a fallen angel using lies to entice Ahab to go to battle? Do you think that the loyal, faithful angels lie to get things accomplished? Who was this spirit? This spirit very clearly was Satan. Was he present at the heavenly council? Yes, he was, right? So there's another example of the Old Testament of a heavenly council where Satan goes to represent planet Earth, and now God gives him permission. God has put a lying spirit. Once again, this is not God's causative will. This is God's permissive will. Remember that, right? This is not what God causes, but this is what God permits. He is given Satan permission. And it's like what happened with Job, right? He gave Satan permission to torment Job, as it were. God did not cause the affliction of Job. God allows Satan to cause the affliction. So does God have a heavenly council? Now we saw it in 3 places in the Bible. Yes, he does, where all of the representatives of the universe gather together to deliberate about certain issues relating to the administration of the universe. Okay, that is clear? Right. Now in the book Patriarchs and Prophets, page 36, we have a clear declaration that there is a heavenly council, right? So now we're going to split up prophecy for ratification. This is when Lucifer was in heaven, was still in heaven, and he was spreading lies about God. It says there in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 36, in heavenly council, the angels pleaded with Lucifer. So there is a heavenly council, right? So you have this heavenly council gathered together, and the angels in the heavenly council are pleading with Lucifer to give up his idea about overthrowing or taking over the throne of God. Now, the next example is after God created Adam and Eve, right? Satan gathered his own council. Satan also has a council, right? To prepare a strategy to deceive Adam. Now, in turn, God gathered his own council to deliberate on a strategy to frustrate the stratagem of Satan's council. So Satan gathers a council and he says, let's plan how we're going to deceive Adam and Eve. And God says, well, let's call a council to counteract that so that he is not successful in deceiving Adam and Eve. Let's read that in the story of redemption, page 29.
God assembled the angelic host to take measures to avert the threatened evil. It was decided in heaven's council for angels to visit Eden and warned Adam that he was in danger from the fall. Two angels sped on their way to visit our first parents.
Okay, so if ever any one of you had a doubt that Adam and Eve were not forewarned about Satan going to deceive them, this text should clear your doubts, right? So does God have a heavenly council where decisions are made concerning the operation of the universe, the administration of the universe? Once again, absolutely. And that is what is happening in the book of Job. The heavenly council is gathered together to deliberate. And of course, present there is Satan representing planet Earth. And we're going to talk about why he represented planet Earth at that point in just a few minutes, right? In a few minutes. Now, Ellen White, notice what Mrs. White had to say on the identity of the 24 elders. According to the spirit of prophecy, the sons of God are commanders of the angel hosts and representatives of the worlds that never sin. They are the members of the heavenly council. And notice the statements that we are going to read. Okay, beginning in Desire of Ages. Let's read that and see.
The commanders of the angel hosts, the sons of God, the representatives of the unfallen world are assembled. The heavenly council, before which Lucifer had accused God and his son, the representatives of those sinless realms over which Satan had thought to establish his dominion, are all there to welcome the Redeemer.
Okay, we read this before, right? So once again, we have it clear here that there is a heavenly council, and you will notice that the council members are called sons of God, the representatives of the worlds that never sin, and the commanders of angel hosts. Okay, now these are the highest of angels. These would be the highest of all angels, right? Now you all are aware that there are ranks of angels, right? We found that there were the general angelic host, then we found the seraphim and the cherubim, and these would be the highest hosts, right? Some have wondered whether Mrs. White is referring to three groups, like we discussed this before, but let's settle it in our minds clearly, right? When she states the commander of angel hosts, the sons of God, the representatives of the fallen worlds, and we can very clearly say the answer is no. These are just three ways of defining the same group. Now let me give you three examples from the writings of Mrs. White. There are others, but we'll use just these three to get the point across. Notice Mrs. White when she's talking about revival, and notice how she describes revival in three different ways. So the first example is from Christian Service. Someone likes to read that?
Revival signifies a renewal of spiritual life, a quickening of the powers of mind and heart, a resurrection from the spiritual death.
Now, let me ask you, are renewal, quickening, and resurrection synonymous? Is she referring to three separate things, or is she giving three different synonyms for us to better understand what revival is? I think she's giving three synonyms, right? She's not using three different separate things. She's using three different synonyms. She's using three terms to define the same thing, right? So this is how Mrs. Wright writes. Now there's a second example, which is found in Selected Messages. It's speaking about the final union of the world against God's remnant. Let's read that and see whether you find synonyms or whether it's referring to three different things.
There will be a universal bond of union, one great harmony, a confederacy of Satan's forces.
Okay, so is bond of union, harmony, and confederacy all synonymous terms? Yes, right? They are synonymous. Now, the third example is when I think we have mentioned this before in the Desire of Ages, page 530, where Mrs. White states, this is about Christ. Let's read that and see.
In Christ is life, original, unborrowed, underived. He that hath the Son hath life. 1 John 5:12. The divinity of Christ is the believer's assurance of eternal life.
Okay, so is original, unborrowed, underived, three different ways of saying the same thing? It is, right? They are all synonymous, synonyms meaning the same thing, right? So is it clear when she says commanders of the angel hosts, sons of God, representatives of the fallen words, she's using synonyms to describe this group, right? They are not three different groups, three separate groups, they are one group. And when you go to Revelation 4, you see that there is not three additional groups in Revelation chapter 4 besides the four living creatures, but only one other group, which are the 24 elders. Okay, so Mrs. White identifies the 24 elders as the commanders of the angelic hosts, sons of God, and representatives of the unfallen worlds, right? So now we understand who they are. Now, when Jesus gained victory over Satan on the cross, heaven and all who dwell in them, heavens and all who dwelled in them rejoice. Now, the plural, heavens is plural, and them strongly suggests that there are other populated worlds. When Jesus gained victory over Satan on the cross, the heavens and all that dwelt in the heavens rejoiced, right? Are there beings on other planets? Now, this is the big question. Is this the only world in the universe that is inhabited? The answer to that question is no. We are not the only world in the universe, but in our solar system, in our Milky Way, we are the only one, right? Now, when Jesus resurrected, the angelic hosts sang. And I want you to notice carefully what they sang. This is found in Revelation 12, verse 12.
Therefore,
Go ahead.
Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea. For the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time.
Are you catching the nuance here? Those who dwell in them. So heavens is plural, right? Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Now, this is one little word in the midst of the universe of God. I put a picture there of the universe. When you look at the universe, we are totally insignificant, but God loves us much, right? So this is not this concept that there are other inhabited planets is not unique to us Seventh-day Adventists, right? Not unique to our Adventist church. I think we all know who Billy Graham was. He was one of the most visible evangelists of the 20th century. Notice what he once said.
I believe there is life on other planets. We have this galaxy, the Milky Way, and they now speculate that there are millions and millions of galaxies, and in each galaxy, a trillion stars, planets, and all that. I cannot imagine that we are the only one that has life. That would be a terribly egotistical thing for us to say as a planet. I believe that God is the God of all of it, and that's why he's so awesome and so tremendous, and why, when I come into his presence, I feel that I'm not worthy. Billy Graham.
Okay, so this is Billy Graham. He was a Protestant evangelist, and this is how we saw it. So it is not something unique to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It is biblical, spirit of prophecy, and also you find it in the certain evangelical Protestants. So there are other words with inhabitants in those words, and each of those words has a representative that represents those words in the heavenly council, and they are called sons of God. Right. Now, the 24 elders are angelic beings. Now, we already noticed that the 24 elders are angelic beings. How do we know that they are angels? Now, the sons of God, we have already seen, are angels according to Revelation 12 and according to Mrs. White. How do we know that the 24 are angels and they're the same as the sons of God? Let's pursue this a little bit. Now, in Revelation chapter 5, verses 5, we have this interesting verse. Let's read that and see.
But one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its seven seals."
Okay, now who is it that is speaking to John? It clearly says one of the elders is speaking to John. Now, notice this comment from Mrs. White. She's speaking about the same thing, the book, right? The seal book or the scroll. Notice what she says in Manuscript Releases, volume 12, page 296 and 297.
This roll was written within and without, John says. I wept much because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. The vision as presented to John made its impression upon his mind. The destiny of every nation was contained in that book. John was distressed at the utter inability of any human being or angelic intelligence to read the words, or even to look thereon. His soul was wrought up to such a point of agony and suspense that one of the strong angels had compassion on him, and laying his hand on him, assuringly said, "Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof." Manuscript Releases, volume 12, page 296.
Oh, thank you. Now, in Revelation, it says one of the elders. Mrs. White says one of the strong angels. So then the elders are angels, angelic beings. Is that right, logically? If A equals C and C equals B, then B is as A, if I remember my logic from many years. So it was one of the elders that spoke the words according to Revelation, and Mrs. White calls that angel. She's giving a detailed description, one of the strong angels, right? So the 24 elders, then are the 24 elders those who resurrected with Jesus? No, can't be, right? Is that clear? It can't be. They are not part of the regular angelic host either, because Mrs. White in this statement says, John was distressed at the utter inability of any human being or angelic intelligence to read the words, right? And we, in our study of Revelation verse by verse study, we found that even God the Father wasn't qualified, right? So not even an angelic intelligence. So in other words, the common ordinary angels in the angelic host had to be one of the strong angels. So the elders are strong angels, right? Now we are confirming who they are. The conclusion is inevitable. According to verse 5, one of the elders spoke to John. However, Mrs. White identifies the elder as one of the strong angels. So this is a clear indication that the 24 elders are not human, but rather angelic. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take it. Now, there is something similar in Revelation chapter 7. Now, in the biblical context, God showed John a great multitude that no one could number. And this great multitude was from all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, who were standing before the throne of God and the Lamb, right? Now, one of the elders asked John a question about this great multitude that is found in Revelation 7:13. So let's go through this conversation.
Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, "Who are these arrayed in white robes, and where did they come from?"
Okay. So in other words, where did this great multitude from every nation, tongue, tribe, and people, where did they come from? And John answers the question by saying,
And I said to him, "Sir, you know."
okay. So is this a conversation between John and one of the elders? It is, right? So one of the 24 elders. Now let's see what he says in verse 15.
"These are the ones who came out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb."
Okay, so this is a conversation between John and one of the 24 elders, right? Now, Mrs. White's commentary on this is very interesting, very perceptive, I must say. Let's read Signs of the Time, December 22, 1887.
John beholds an innumerable company, precious, refined, purified around the throne of the majesty of heaven. The angel requires of John, "What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they?" And John answers, "Sir, thou knowest." Then the angel declares, "These are they which came out of great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb."
Okay, that gives us an indication that these are the 144,000, right? Not all the resurrected righteous from Adam down, but this, especially the conversation is about the 144,000, right? So in its original biblical context, one of the elders is having a conversation. Whereas Ellen White identifies the elder as one of the strong angels, right? Now, it's extremely important. There is another vital conclusion that we will expand on later. Clearly, the elder is not a member of the great multitude from every nation, tongue, and people. That is clear, right? From the conversation, he says, "Who are these?" So obviously, he's not part of them, right? He's there with them, but he's not part of them, right? Now, remember that clearly because there is a translation glitch in the King James Version in chapter 5, right? That we will get to a little later, right? We will find this out very valuable when we come to that. Revelation 5 verses 9 and 10, we're going to find this very, very important. The elders are not part of the great multitude. Remember that, keep that in mind. We shall find that this is an important point because the King James, like I said, translation of Revelation 5, 9, 10 gives us the impression that the elders were redeemed from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation, but they are not. That is, if you go to the original Greek, you find that what the translators have translated is not absolutely correct, right? The tense, the verb, the tense and verbs there are not correct. We will come to that and we will study that in detail so that it clears our mind on that completely, right? Now, let's take two more quotations from Mrs. White. One is from the Sermon and Talks, volume 1, page 20.
John saw a company standing around the throne of God, and the angel asked him, "Who are these in white robes?" He answered, "Thou knowest." Moreover, the angel said, "These are they who have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. There is a fountain in which we may wash from every stain of impurity. In addition," says the angel, "he shall lead them to fountains of living waters and shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. This will be the happy privilege of those who have kept the commandments of God in the earth.
Okay. Now, who asked him? According to Revelation 7, it was one of the elders. 3 times Mrs. White says angel, and the angel asked him, the angel, right? That's a beautiful promise. Let's read Signs of the Time, November 22, 1905.
As John saw the multitude standing around the throne of God, the question was asked, "What are these which are arrayed in white robes? And whence come they?" "These are they which came out of great tribulation," the angel answered, "and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb."
Okay, so we are clear that the sons of God referred here are strong angels. They are a different category or group of angels, right? They are the high order, I should say order, highest order of angels in heaven, and they represent the unfallen worlds. Now, someone might say, well, the 24 elders, represent the prayers of God's people in heaven. How can they be angels? Isn't it Jesus who presents our prayers? Because we are told that the angels take our prayers up to heaven, present it to Jesus. Jesus covers it with his righteousness and presents it to the Father. Father gives back the answer to Jesus. Jesus gives it to the angels, and angels brings it back to us on earth, right? Now, so how can they be angels? Isn't Jesus who presents our prayers? Well, let's notice this interesting statement from Revelation 5:8, that the 24 elders play harps and they present the prayers of the saints before God. Let's notice who these are that present the prayers. Now, remember, we spoke about the ladder that Jacob saw, right? And on that ladder, there are angels, and the angels are going up and some are coming down. And we know the ladder represents Jesus. We read that from Matthew when Jesus says, "I am that ladder." So the angels are taking our petitions up to heaven and bringing down the answers, right? The answers to God. So they're involved in taking our prayers to God, blending our prayers with the incense that is the righteousness of Jesus when the prayers arrive in heaven. Now notice this from Lift Him Up, page 370.
Heavenly beings are appointed to answer the prayers of those who are working unselfishly for the interest of the cause of God. The very highest angels in the heavenly courts are appointed to work out the prayers that ascend to God for the advancement of the cause of God. Each angel has his particular post of duty, which he is not permitted to leave for any other place. If he should leave, the powers of darkness would gain an advantage.
Did you read that carefully? It says the very highest angels, and they are given a post. So you and I have a guardian angel, right? So these, now we are talking about the very highest angels. So it is the 24 elders. So there are more than 24, obviously, right? And they're given a certain post and they never leave their post. So don't ever think that God doesn't answer your prayers. Okay? We might get depressed or feel that God is not hearing us. But if we have confessed and we ask in obedience, we are obedient to his word and we ask, God answers our prayers. He will not answer it the way we want, but he does answer our prayers. So because he doesn't answer it the way we want, doesn't mean he hasn't answered it. He has answered it according to his plan, right? Now, who are the ones who do this? All the angels? No. The very highest angels in the heavenly courts, we are told. So if elders are strong angels or are the highest angels, they cannot be the human first fruits who resurrected with Jesus. Now, are you follow me? Is that clear? Now here's a question. Why was Satan among the sons of God? Kind of a discordant note in heaven, right? This pest was up there to kind of spoil the meeting. Why was Satan there? Well, Luke 4, 5 and 6 has the answer. Satan meets Jesus on the Mount of Temptation. And it says there, listen, let's read that and see.
Then the devil, taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, all this authority I'll give you, and their glory, for this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. Therefore, if you will worship before me, all will be yours.
What is Satan saying? He said that it has been delivered to me. Who delivered it to him? Adam, right? Adam delivered to him. When Adam obeyed Satan, he became a servant of Satan, because we are servants of the one who we choose to obey. So Adam lost his position on the throne. He lost his territory. A usurper took over the throne and the territory which he governed. Actually, Adam should have been representing us there, right? And this is very interesting because Jesus died on the cross. When Jesus died on the cross, he says, now is the judgment of the world. Now the rule of the earth will be cast out. Did Jesus recognize that before the cross, Satan was the ruler of this world? He most certainly did, right? And what did Jesus say? He was going to he was going to do at the cross. He said he was going to cast the ruler of the world at the cross and going to redeem this world. So was Satan cast out at the cross? Now you might say he was cast out at the beginning. Well, this is a second casting out. Remember, at the beginning, he was cast out of heaven. Now, this is a second casting out. He was cast out as the representative of this world. After this, he could not go to heaven representing this earth. Jesus now represents this earth in the heavenly council. Not only that, he was cast out from the sympathies of the heavenly beings. If you read Desire of Ages, the chapters on Gethsemane and Calvary, the mask was torn off Satan, and the last itsy bitsy bit of sympathy that the heavenly beings had with him was gone. So he was cast out of the sympathy of the heavenly beings. He was cast out from representing us, and no longer can he go to the heavenly council to represent us. Now, when God calls a heavenly council, Jesus is the one who represents us. Isn't that good news? So Satan was there in this meeting in the book of Job because he was representing planet Earth. However, at the cross, he's cast out, and now Jesus is the head and representative of planet Earth. We will notice that in a little while, but after we notice that it goes back again, Jesus gives back the representation to the rightful owner, Adam. That is, as we study, we will find out, right? Now, God's plan for the human race. Now, this is very interesting, very interesting. So hang in there. Now, let's talk about God's plan for the human race. This is going to be very interesting, like I said, right? God's plan for the human race was different from that of any other world in his universe. How so? Now, whereas the other worlds had strong angels called elders, the Bible, in the Bible representing them in the heavenly council, right? Those worlds had strong angels, elders representing them in the heavenly council. God placed Adam to rule and represent this world. So in other words, the other worlds had strong angels as their representatives. This world was different. Planet Earth was different because God placed Adam, one of the creatures he had made, to represent planet Earth. Now, of course, those angels were also created, but they were created different to us. Notice this statement from Mrs. White, found in Sons and Daughters of God, page 7.
All heaven took a deep and joyful interest in the creation of the world and of man. Human beings were a new and distinct order. They were made in the image of God, and it was the Creator's desire that they should populate the earth. They were to live in close communion with heaven, receiving power from the source of all power. Upheld by God, they were to live sinless lives.
Okay, so we were a new and distinctive order, right? So God's plan for this world was different. It was distinctive from his plan for any other worlds. So I suppose we can say that he created all the worlds at once, all the people who populated it. I'm not sure, right? When we get to heaven, we will know that clearly. So God created Adam and Eve a little lower than angels, according to Psalms 8, verses 3 and 5. And it is repeated again that we were created lower than angels in the book of Hebrews. Now let's pursue this a little more. Now, if they pass the test, that is, and trial God plan, that is Adam and Eve had passed the test and trial God plan. Now listen to the plan, right? That was distinct. God planned to fill the vacancies that Lucifer and his angels left in heaven when they failed with the redeemed of the Lord. Actually, even before there was a need of redemption, God had planned that there would be procreation on this earth to replace the vacancies that Satan and his angels left in heaven. Even before redemption became necessary, that was God's plan. So what is it? Let's read that. How do we know that? Well, know this statement from the truth about angels.
God created man for his own glory, that after test and trial, the human family might become one with the heavenly family. It was God's purpose to repopulate heaven with the human family.
So are you catching a glimpse of that? What was his plan for us the humans were to repopulate heaven to fill in the vacancies that Satan and his angels left. So after an individual passes the test, isn't he promoted? Now, when we sit for a test, we are promoted, right? That after the tests and trials, that is, if they passed it, they were to be promoted. So that was God's purpose, to repopulate heaven with the human family, right? So what was the purpose of procreation? Why did God create man and woman? Why did God tell Adam and Eve to multiply, right? To have children. It was to repopulate heaven and fill the vacancies that were left there by Satan and his angels when they were cast out. And cast out, the idea is the redeemed are going to replace them. So if you and I are among the redeemed, I hope we will fill in the vacancies that Satan and his angels left. 1/3, right? Mrs. White says almost half of the angelic host, right? Now now this was God's plan, right? Before the inception of sin. However, was this still God's plan after sin? But the answer is yes. Let's read Patriarchs, Prophets and Kings, page 588 and 589.
Satan has an accurate knowledge of the sins that he has tempted God's people to commit, and he urges his accusations against them, declaring that by their sins they have forfeited divine protection and claiming that he has the right to destroy them. He pronounces them just as deserving as himself of exclusion from the favor of God. Are these, he says, the people who are to take my place in heaven and the place of the angels who united with me? They profess to obey the law of God, but have they kept its precepts? Have they not been lovers of self more than lovers of God? Have they not placed their own interest above his service? Have they not loved the things of the world? Look at the sins that have marked their lives. Behold their selfishness, their malice, their hatred of one another, Will God banish me and my angels from his presence, and yet reward those who have been guilty of the same sin? Thou canst not do this, O Lord, in justice. Justice demands that sentence be pronounced against them.
Wow, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
So now you know why Satan doesn't want us to get to heaven. He says, if I am not there, why should you go there?
I should, yeah.
Right? Awesome, right? Now we have read prophets and kings many times before, but when you study it like this, it opens up your mind, right? So the human family, planet Earth was created to procreate so that we could repopulate heaven. Now, here's another statement. This is from the Story of Redemption, page 19.
The father consulted his son in regard to at once carrying out their purpose to make man to inhabit the earth. He would place man upon probation to test his loyalty before he could be rendered eternally secure. If he endured the test wherewith God saw fit to prove him, he should eventually be equal with the angels. He was to have the favor of God, and he was to converse with angels, and they with him.
So clearer, right? So in other words, the plan was that human beings, if they pass the test, that was Adam, they eventually would be equal with angels because they were going to replace the vacancies left by Satan and his angels. Now, this final one makes it very explicit, which it states,
The vacancies made in heaven by the fall of Satan and his angels will be filled by the redeemed of the Lord.
crystal clear, right? No doubts about it. So now we know why Satan doesn't want any of us to get there, because he's just the devil. He doesn't want us to be there because he's not going to be there, right? He doesn't want us to take his place. Now, where do we find evidence in the Bible that God established procreation for this purpose? Now, we've clearly found out in spirit of prophecy. Now, is there in the Bible? Mrs. White doesn't say one thing that is not in the Bible, right? Where in the Bible do we find the idea that God created humans a little lower than angels, and that if they pass the test, they would be as angels, right? On the same level as angels. There is a biblical basis for that. Remember the conversation Jesus had with the Sadducees about the resurrection? It's found in Luke chapter 20, verses 34 to 36. Now, the Sadducees presented an imaginary scenario of 7 marriages. So they're trying to put Jesus between a rock and a hard place, right? The Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection. The Sadducees believed that you lived your life and once you died, that was it. There was no resurrection. They also did not believe in the immortality of the soul. Now, why is that significant? Because the Pharisees believed in the immortality of the soul, right? They didn't believe that when a person dies, his soul continues to live on. But the Pharisees did. Did you know that? That is why they hated the Pharisees, because the Pharisees believed in the immortality of the soul. And the Pharisees believed in the resurrection of the dead, right? So the Apostle Paul says in the book of Acts, that Paul tells us, right? It is interesting that in the times of Christ, you had all these Jewish sects. They call themselves denominations, and they totally disliked each other. We had the Zealots, the Essenes, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, all different denominations. They didn't like each other, and they all claimed to be Jews, but they didn't like the other. But the interesting thing is that when it came to destroying public enemy number 1, which was Jesus, they all came together. They set aside their theological differences. Does that sound familiar? The exact thing that is happening in the world today, right? If you look at the world today, this Pope, we all know, is an extremely dangerous Pope. Pope Francis I, he travels far and wide to all the religious leaders and is trying to draw all Christendom together in unity, forgetting differences in doctrines, right? He never talks about their doctrines. He says he doesn't put doctrines there. He says just love one another. Forget the doctrines, love one another. Let's solve the problems of the planet. Let's solve the issues of climate change. Heard that one? Let's solve the issue of poverty. Let's solve the issue of immigration. Let's solve the problems of divisions in the family. Just let's get along together. Forget our doctrinal differences, right? Forget theology. My study group family, but theology is the foundation of life. It is important to understand what the state of the dead is as told to us in the Bible. Isn't it? It isn't just an academic thing. How important is understanding the state of the dead? It is vitally important, because if you believe that the dead are not dead, Satan is going to deceive you by counterfeiting a supposed relative who is going to appear to you and going to teach you things that are not in the Bible. And you are going to believe it because you're going to believe your eyes and your ears more than what God says, more than the clear word of God, right? So is the theological position and the state of the dead vitally important? You better believe it. Doctrine is important. Now, I heard it in my own church where someone said, doctrine is not important. And that sent my blood cold, right? Doctrine is important. If you think doctrine is not important, read 2 John. That is only one chapter in 2 John, verses 9 and 10, right? 2 John verses 9 and 10, and then you will realize how important doctrine is, because doctrine is the teachings of Christ, which are the teachings of the Bible, right? Now, how about the Sabbath? Is the doctrine of Sabbath important? You better believe it, right? That is going to be the greatest test at the end of time. The thing is, people today, they say, just let's get along. Let's love one another. Have you heard it? Sometimes we hear it in our own local churches. Let's just gather together, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Let's just have a good time in worship services. Let's just have an hour of praise and 10 minutes of sermon. Who wants to listen to boring sermons? Heard that? Yes, we hear that, right? Often. Why are sermons boring? Because our minds are not stayed on the Lord. And we are more interested in pleasing people than God. Now, let me not preach here. Now, what's common these days? That's common these days because people don't want theology. The postmodern mind, right? In the postmodern mind, there is no absolute truth. Your truth is just as valid as my truth. So if you want to believe that 2 plus 3 is 7, that's fine by me. That's how you believe. If you want to believe that 2 plus 3 is 5, that's also fine for me. Both are true because truth is relative, right? But we know truth is absolute. It's not relative, it's absolute. Now, because there's no interest in theology today, people are only interested in sentimental, in the existential that makes me feel good. My feelings change. I can be happy right now and sad the next. So I want to make people happy. Let's have peace. Let's have harmony. Let's, like we say, let's join hands and sing Kumbaya, forget theology. Let's put anyone up there on our pulpits. It doesn't matter as long as we are happy. No. That is not what the Bible says. So now, sorry, I digress there. Let's come back to Luke 20, 34 to 36. Now back to the biblical concept of this, that the human race was created to procreate and populate the vacancies left in heaven. Let's read that.
Jesus answered and said to them, the sons of this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are counted worthy to attain that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, nor can they die anymore, for they are equal to the angels and are sons of God being sons of the resurrection.
Now let's unpack that a little bit. First conclusion, God establishes marriage is only for this age for a specific purpose. So if you want to get married here on earth. No marriage in heaven. Second, there will be no marriage in the world to come because marriage has fulfilled its purpose, right? Is that point clear? Marriage will have fulfilled its purpose when the redeemed, when we get to heaven, right? So will marriage have fulfilled the purpose of filling the vacancies that Satan and his angels left in heaven? Absolutely. Third conclusion is, in the world to come, the redeemed will be equal to the angels, thus first fulfilling God's original plan. And finally, like the angels, human beings will be called the sons of God, right? For they are equal to angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a biblical foundation for Mrs. White's comments about procreation being established in order to fill the vacancies that were left in heaven when Satan and his angels were fell? Absolutely. There's a firm biblical foundation, and that foundation is found here in the words of Jesus. Now we have an interesting comment from Mrs. White in the book Medical Ministry, page 99, where she confirms what we just discussed. Let's read that.
There are men today who express their belief that there will be marriages and births in the new earth. But those who believe the scriptures cannot accept such doctrines. The doctrine that children will be born in the new earth is not a part of the sure word of prophecy. The words of Christ are too plain to be misunderstood. They should forever settle the question of marriages and births in the new earth. Neither those who shall be raised from the dead, nor those who shall be translated without seeing death, will marry or be given in marriage. They will be as the angels of God, members of the royal family.
That's clear, right? So is this our study today clear? The 24 elders are the highest orders of the angelic host, right? And they are not those who resurrected with Jesus, right? They are angels, they are strong angels, they are the highest angels. They represent the planets of the universe in the heavenly council, right? Now you say, are there only 24? No, they are not 24. The number 24 is a symbolic number. In a final, in a 1 or 2 weeks time, we will discuss this. Now we have 3 more lessons on the 24 elders, different facets about the 24 elders. In our final one, we will discuss that issue of the 24. The number 24 has to do with the 24 courses in the sanctuary where the priests serve. Now, if you go to Leviticus, they had certain duties, right? Do the 24 elders perform priestly duties according to what we noticed? Do they present prayers of the saints? Yes, they do, right? So what happens is the 24 courses of the priests on earth, right, are a shadow. Now, like the Levites who took care of who could go into the holy place, there were 24 courses for them. How do we know that? John the Baptist's father, Zechariah, it was his lot to go in and burn incense, right? So like that, there are burn incense is the prayers of the people, right? So they had different divisions. So just like that, 24 is what it represents, right? It's the heavenly the earthly was a reflection of the heavenly service. So you have these elders that serve in the church on earth. Their functions are reflections of the functions of the elders in the heavenly economy, because the church on earth is a reflection of the church in heaven according to the Spirit. So elders, if you are there, remember, you are performing a function. Don't take it lightly, right? God will hold you responsible. That was from Istambika Palan. I hope this lesson was very clear, because this is foundational for what we are going to study next week.